What up? You didn't see the first intro, but we started out and I didn't have one of these, and I'm like, I don't know, man, my back gets all cramped up. If you see do they see this phone on the screen? Yeah. That phone is my telephone. It's an iPhone 7. I'm a big fan so far. And we've got Periscope live. So while we're recording this for YouTube, or for SoundCloud or for iTunes or wherever you're hearing it. If it is on SoundCloud or iTunes, you will not be seeing me pointing at this phone, but trust me, it is an iPhone 7. And we go live on Periscope, and people will sometimes hang in here, and they'll have a question or two for us after we're done. We call this Fighting is About Fighting. What's this, number 13? Yeah, lucky 13. And really quickly, the first thing we recorded, I used to have a job on a television network here in Canada. And once they shut it down, Mark and I met and we recorded a show. And Fighting was About Fighting was a bit of a motto that I had. A little hashtag Fighting is About Fighting. And whenever people were talking about gossip or talking about things that weren't actually the martial arts, I would use that hashtag, and I kind of shared that idea. And it kind of, people who share a similar idea shared it as well. So it's just something we used as the name of the vlog or podcast or whatever. And at first, when you decide you're going to share ideas with people, sometimes you have a bunch of structure. So we're like, that'll be the one where we use it to describe our process. And then you kind of realize, me and Mark, Aaron, Marc-Andre, any of our crew that are in, and other people that'll get involved with us, Akasambo, Christopher Ming, we can do whatever the fuck we want. Right? I forget that sometimes. We've gone through periods, and what we want to do, obviously, is talk about martial arts, talk about fighting, talk about the lessons we learn from the study of martial arts. That's at the root of what this YouTube channel is, of what, we do on Periscope and what we do on Instagram is we study fighting, we study the martial arts, we study the UFC and combat sports and all these things in search of lessons that probably give us a better life. And that sounds big and grand because it's big and grand. And I mean it. I believe that in the study of the martial arts, there are lessons about how to live your life, about how to be a better partner, about how to be more successful, about how to be a kinder person, more generous person, about health, everything. It's all there. I believe it's all there. And that is at the root of what we started doing. So this particular podcast, or whatever you want to call it, started to take on the shape of, I'll tell the story of what we're up to. But I realized we can just do whatever we want. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my adventures. I was on Brendan Schaub's show, the Big Brown Breakdown, which was really fun. Tell you a little bit about that, whatever comes to mind. And I'm going to talk to you my thoughts on Amanda Nunes. And although that is a fight that didn't happen, and I'm generally loath to talk about fights that didn't happen, I like to talk about fights that are happening or are currently we're watching. While we're watching it, I like to share ideas, commentate, or talk. I go live on Periscope or YouTube during fights now and share what we're learning, and after fights happen as we examine them. I rarely want to talk about fights that might happen or who they might fight or, and particularly I don't talk a lot about fights that didn't happen. But the Amanda Nunes one is interesting to me because if we're in search of lessons about life, there's a lot of lessons about life there, particularly people's reaction to it. Empathy. Understanding what it is to be human. A lot of that. We'll get to that. Let me start off by telling you, we were going to do Ask Robin Black today, which I enjoy like crazy. Ask Robin Black, I take your questions, and then I answer them. In generally a long and convoluted and exploratory way. Because that's how, I don't believe there is an easy answer all the time. That philosophy leads over to why I don't really enjoy making fight picks, because who you got? You got Mousasi or you got Ryan Bader, and I'm making that one up because Mousasi is going to one day fight Ryan Bader. He likes to fight at 205. He prefers not to cut weight. He's in Bellator now. Who you got? Who you got? Oh, man, I got Mousasi. That's a meaningless cop-out of exploration. Or it is a fork in the road that you've chosen, and now you will only look for evidence of that. Well, I got him because he's a better striker. Anyways, I like to explore and meander and search and uncover and then find a dead end and go back. And I know some people enjoy that. I know we've got a lot of stoners in the audience. They seem to enjoy that. And some people like the idea of just searching for different answers and finding that you're wrong and then having to go all the way back and start again. And so anyways, that's Ask Robin Black. We were going to do it today. And at the last second, I had to pull because we were going to do this and then that. But I had to pull it because we're doing work for TSN this week. Now, some of our audience is Canadian. Those of you who aren't, TSN, it's the sports network. If you're in America, it's the equivalent of ESPN, where it's the biggest sports network in the country. And there's this little thing going on where a man named Conor McGregor, I don't know if you know him, is going to box with a gentleman under the name of, I think, Floyd Mayweather, something like that. These two guys are going to fight. Obviously, I'm being facetious. But before they fight, there are going to be 4 press conferences. One is in Los Angeles. At the time I'm recording this, that's still coming up. Then one is in Toronto. One is in New York, and one is in London, England. So I got a call today while I was preparing our questions for Ask Robin Black saying, hey, can you come in to TSN tomorrow and do a pre-hit on SportsCenter about what to expect from these press conferences. And then I'll watch the press conference and after react to it, potentially with Russ Amber, who is a brilliant boxing guy. So I'm super excited about that. Very, very excited because normally press conferences to me, I just can't even understand why people are so interested in them. It's like these gentlemen are going to fight each other. They're going to strike and strangle and pull and beg and bleed and draw and suck it up and push themselves to the limit and push the other to the limit, all in front of all of us. Who the fuck cares what they say? That's my take normally. But this is different. And once I realized that this is different, this is where, what I was saying earlier, that you've got to search for where you're wrong. The fact that I realize that this is different means that it can be different. It can be relevant. It usually isn't, because the primary purpose of a press conference is to make people give you money so that they will watch the actual thing, which is a fight. There are secondary and tertiary purposes to that press conference, and those are the ones that I should be interested in. So I was wrong, I realize. Now, I was making, when I would say, press conferences, because, and I think it was a reaction to because the fact that when I see a lot of people who work in a similar business or an arm of a similar business to me, I look around and I think to myself, these guys don't cover fighting. They don't cover martial arts. They cover press conferences. And I watch them not watch the fights when I'm backstage at places. And then at the end, they're at the press conference and they can't wait to hear what they say. And to me, I'm like, I just don't care what they say. They're fighters, they're athletes, they're martial artists, they're creative people. They're heroes and villains, and they're strivers and they're dreamers, and they're all these things. But most of the things they say are either to sell a fight or to get you off their back because they're tired of answering questions, or to misdirect, and nobody ever questions what they say. And I'll go back to Amanda Nunes later. People are like, well, she said she had sinusitis. Amanda Nunes may have had some issue with her nose, but when she said, yeah, my nose is screwed up, she's melting down. Fear, anxiety, She's melting down. She just can't tell, you know, I was going to use a name, but I don't want to pick on any of these journalists. They're people doing their best to do the things that's important to them. But I was trying to think of somebody from Fox Sports that I like to use as an example. But anyways, a guy's in their face with a microphone. It's like, what's wrong? She can't say, I'm fucking melting down. My life is falling apart. I feel like I'm being smothered under millions of pounds of something. I can hardly breathe as my heart feels like it's pounding out of my chest. And I know that doctor just said I can fight, but he doesn't understand. My life is, I'm under an avalanche of shit. She can't say that. So she says, oh, I got sinusitis, which she then writes after and hides underneath it. Anyways, so most of the time they're lying. And I've seen it. And I've seen it with smart people. My buddy Cody, I'll see him ask a coach, hey, how can anybody believe what Henry Hoof says when he says this about this? And the coach will shake his head and go, man, they know Henry. They hear him speak thousands of times in a month. The thing he said in the press may have 100 purposes for it. So the words, as we sit there, and most websites talk about the words, oh my God, this guy said this after that fight. Most of it is not representative of the truth. Anyways, I digress. This is what I do. So the press conferences, to me, these are the reasons why I don't want to read a MMA website or whatever, you know, an MMA magazine or see an MMA TV show or whatever that hangs on debates the words of a bunch of fighters, because I'm interested in their art. Yet, if I can allow myself to be compelled by the impending press conferences of McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, I must admit that there's something to this. So that means there can be other scenarios. When Tony Ferguson is talking to or about Khabib Nurmagomedov and vice versa, they can be playing with chess pieces as well. So anyways, I have a lot to think about, in my opinion, and I'm willing to, and I want to go back and see what I've been missing. I think it's important. What have I been missing? Just because I want to push away gossip and debate and hanging on the every word that may be misdirection doesn't mean that there's not value in a press conference. But so I am tasked with tomorrow night explaining what people should expect. And when you have undoubtedly half an audience filled with crazy, ravenous, passionate, drunk Irish lunatics who, and as my friend David said today, who you don't have the words to describe what it means to them. You don't have the words. We were trying to find the words. There aren't words in the English language to be able to say, to be able to describe their passionate connection and what Conor McGregor represents to them as individuals and as a nation. That's crazy. Such words don't yet exist. That's pretty wild. And so I have to explain that tomorrow to an audience, a sports audience, and I think that's going to be fun. And then I have to delve into what, if anything, McGregor attempts to do. My job is to focus on him, but obviously there are two, which is why I'm there with a boxing guy, and why conflict erupts, and television and media and the internet love conflict. And it's interesting. He'll disagree with me, but McGregor tries to put chess pieces into the game when he speaks. Some of it publicly, but also some of it not publicly, backstage. Who walks through the door first? You know, the things he says when he's walking around. These are attempts at weaponizing words. So that's going to be fun. So I'll be working on that tonight. And then on Wednesday of this week, you could be watching this a year from now, which would be really cool. If you're in the future right now, thank you. Thank you for traveling back to the past with me. But on Wednesday, yes, I will actually be at the Toronto press conference, which was going to be at what they call the Sony Center, which I believe I've watched my wife perform there. Excuse me, I'm having a sip of coffee. If you're watching video, you saw that. I said that for people listening in case I slurped, which for some reason I do when I think about trying not to slurp. It's odd. But that very idea, try not to slurp, can make you slurp. If I say to you, try not to think about a pink elephant, what just popped into your mind? These are the types of games that high-level psychological combat artists can play with. So anyways, that's going to be fun. They moved it from the Sony Center, which holds a couple thousand people, to what used to be called the Molson Amphitheater. It's now called the Budweiser Center. What does that hold? 14,000? 14,000 people are going to go and sit and watch a few people talk. And for the 8,000 Irish people that are there, and there are hundreds, maybe 100,000, maybe more, Irish in Toronto, and they all want to go. I spoke to my friend David. We do a podcast, The Mentality of Combat Sports. Please check it out. It has relevant ideas connected to this conversation. He said, you know, he knows hundreds of Irish, and they're going. They're calling out of work. They're quitting their job if they have to. They go ask their boss, and he says, no, fuck you, mate. I quit to go see this guy talk. They're having pre-parties, and they're figuring out what they're going to wear and which songs they're going to sing. That's influence. There's something happening there. And it is that influence which McGregor attempts to focus on one other person. So he can influence millions, some to hate him, some to love him, maybe tens of millions, maybe 4 million to buy it. Of course, Mayweather plays an enormous role in that. Without Mayweather, it'd only be 1.5 million. With Mayweather alone, 1 million. Together, 4 million. Humans, us, others like you and I, are going to go and spend $100 to watch this happen. That's influence. He'll attempt to influence his opponent, the greatest boxer in the world, way better than him, to not be the greatest boxer in the world in those moments, and so that he could try to win. So that's fascinating. My job this week is going to be fascinating, to first talk and share these ideas for a sports audience, and then be there on Wednesday. And I put in a request with Audi and Connor, and if you're so inclined, let him know. I want a one-on-one with McGregor. I've done one-on-ones with McGregor before. He seems to like me and appreciate my analysis. I'm working on that. So speaking of influence, we were talking about that. This week, I was on Brendan Schaub's show, The Big Brown Breakdown, and Brendan has an enormous audience growing all the time. Really, really interesting. He's a smart, driven, hardworking guy, but he's also got this compelling personality that you just like him. Just like him. People like him, you know? They liked watching him fight. They like hearing him talk about fights. Turns out when he tells a good joke, they like to laugh at that. They like to follow him on Instagram and see what he does. They like to watch his shows. There's something, influence and the ability to or the rare quality that people want to follow you or hear your ideas or see what you're doing. That is a wild thing, and it's become very, very specific. And so, you know, when you're around people like that, you study them. What is it? What is it about? I mean, Conor or Floyd Mayweather are extreme examples, the greatest of the greatest. But what is it about and that just right there, that just ended my I don't know if you heard that if you were watching the podcast. That just ended the Periscope shoot because I don't know how to turn my ringer off. But hey, such is life. Also, I will turn this ringer off. But yeah, you know why people follow McGregor. He's knocked out the greatest in the world. He's hilarious. He's compelling. Whatever. Floyd Mayweather, 49-0, undeniable. But Brendan Schaub, what is it? What is it? I mean, what is it about him? And you can't really put your finger on it. But you know it when you sit with him. You sit down with Brendan. How's his analysis? It's very good. How's his comedy? I'm sure it's very good. But there's something about him. You cheer for him, you know? And you might not. There's people who say, I hate that guy. That's powerful too. Powerful. So it's an odd thing. What is that thing? And whenever I'm exposed to those things, I need to understand them. What is it McGregor's doing? People, it's the, Brendan even said, what's the X factor? I'm not just going to accept that. X factor means we've given it a word. Now we don't have to explain. No, I want to know what it is. And same thing with Brendan. Likability. Oh, okay, it's likability. Great. We're good. No. I want to know what it is. Why do we cheer for him? Why do I want to chat with him? Why do we want to watch him? Is it the quality of his work? His work's very, very good. Something about him. It's very interesting. But so these are the things that, the weird little curiosities that you can have. You don't have to accept that there's no answer. Oh, that's an it factor. It's an it factor. Now we're done. We don't have to talk about it anymore. Oh, it's the it factor. Great. No. What is it? Is it chemical? Is it psychological? Like, I sat and chatted with Brendan. I wanted to tell him secrets in front of, many hundreds of thousands of people. I didn't get into deep secrets of my life, but I felt compelled to tell him. That's interesting. How does he do that? And I don't think he's doing it on purpose. It's just something in him. Fascinating stuff. So yeah, we'll think more about it. I'm looking forward to seeing him when he's in town. I think it's July 27th. Brendan Schaub is here in Toronto. So actually, you know what? I'll make a promise. I'll get something on YouTube, on this YouTube channel with Brendan then. We'll get Mark on the list, and we'll carve out, even if it's 10 minutes, we'll carve out 10 minutes with Brendan backstage, hopefully 30 minutes. And we'll ask him some of these questions. We won't just sit around and do what we love doing, which is talking about fighting. I'm going to try to figure out who he is and what's going on. That'll be the target. So if you got any questions for Schaub for backstage that night or early the next morning, we'll drive him to the airport or whatever it is, ask him. And I'll use some of them. Last thought I have today, man, this is a meanderer. But, I've been away for a week, and getting to just brain dump is a real gift. I appreciate you guys. Before I go into the Amanda Nunes, I want to say I've been hesitant to talk about our crowdfunding. I mention it at the very end sometimes. But I've been a little hesitant to talk about it because I feel like I don't want to go around asking people for money. But I'm realizing that any amount of crowdfunding and support people give us, we're going to cover our basic expenses, give Mark a chunk of it, and whatever's left past what's reasonable to give Mark, we're going to spend on trying to go somewhere and get some hangs with people. Okay? So I'm not asking you to, hey, please give us thousands of dollars. But if you can, check out our crowdfunding page. It's called Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Robin Black. If like 500 people give us $5 or $10, we are set. This YouTube channel is set. And we want to do this for a long time. We want to go further. We want to dig deeper. We want to meet more interesting people. We want to peel back deeper layers. And we literally need to find 500 people who love what we're doing enough to give us $5 to $10. So patreon.com/Robin Black. And I've come to grips with the idea that asking for crowdfunding is something that I'm comfortable with doing because we're going to use it properly. Okay. We've had great support from sponsors. We've had Fierce Supply. Send them a follow on Instagram and a follow on Twitter and tell them we just sent some love and Fighting is About Fighting 13. We're going to work with them again. They sent us down to Dallas to gather stuff with Jorge, Kelvin Gastelum. Extreme Couture helped me just go out and do some work in LA and then see Brendan. Extreme Couture Toronto. While we're at it, the night before Brendan's show, July 26th, the day before, July 26th, like all day long, I'm going to go to Extreme Couture. Come meet me, okay? Come meet me and say hello. I won't be there the entire day, but I'll figure out the hours I'll be there, and then come and meet me there. It's their 9th anniversary party, and they are going to throw a hell of a party, Okay, so, and you'll meet a bunch of, like, there'll be some kind of Toronto celebrities and MMA celebrities. Misha Cirkunov, top UFC fighter. It's going to be a bunch of people there. So please come July 26th. But I appreciate the support. I really, really do. And we got to take this thing to another level. We want to. We have 15,000 plus followers. If we do it right, we'll have 100,000 by the end of the year, and we'll travel all over the world, and we'll do hangs with the coolest people in the world. And everybody who helps us in the early stages will never forget you. Last thought, Amanda Nunes. Let me have a sip of my coffee again. I did not slurp that time, but I did gulp. So Amanda Nunes, a very interesting one. People love conflict and people love outrage. And I was very surprised when I was chatting the Sunday morning after the weekend of fights. Brilliant things, so you can go back and watch it. I called it After the Hostilities because I say enjoy the hostilities, my friends. So after the hostilities, why don't we hang out? I like it. If I sound rather pleased with myself, I am a little bit. So we talked about the brilliance of Justin Gaethje, and we will talk about that much further later this week in Ask Robin Black. And Michael Johnson, the kind of fight they put on together. We talked about Robert Whittaker. We talked about Yoel Romero. We talked about all kinds of stuff. But the thing that got people all revved up and is getting people revved up is Amanda Nunes unprofessional? Should Amanda Nunes be stripped of the title? And all this kind of stuff. And I think people are, I know that there are layers to this that people are missing. Now, if you want to just say, fuck her, strip her of the title, she's a bum, she's scared, by all means do. But I'm here to tell you, we're always looking to see if there's a lesson we can learn that's valuable to us. And in this one, for this area, the lesson is to try to figure out where empathy and what's really happening in such a way that we can compare it to our own lives. And so we got to start with there's 3 or 4 layers of misunderstanding here. The first one is, okay, so this is a common reaction. Fuck her, she didn't. All she had was a cold. She didn't show up and fight. The second one is, she's a chicken shit. These are the things that I've been heard or have been sent my way. Third one is, she's the champion of the world. She's expected to do it. Fourth is, all these people invested all this money in her, and she owes it. Fifth is, she owes it to us, et cetera, et cetera. So there's many, many different layers there. The first one being taking her at face value. So she's got sinusitis and couldn't get over it, and that's why she didn't fight. So she's lying, and she's lying. And why did Dana White say it's 90% mental? Does he have some crazy insight? How can I say she's lying? How do I know? Talk to anyone who's run a show. So my buddy Marc-Andre Drolet ran a dozen shows in Winnipeg. I've seen him deal with this 4 times. 2 to 3 with the same guy who was from Manitoba. Great fighter. Sage Northcutt dealt with this and went the other way. Decided to fight, but then gave himself the out that on Monday morning he could go on podcasts and go on Fox and whatever and say, oh, I had this terrible cold. That's a different way, but it's the same reaction to stress. And you talk to anybody, you talk to the people at Bellator and the people, I was going to say KSW or Russia, but this shit don't fly there. You would have melted down long before you got to the lowest level of ACB in Russia. You would have melted down at tournaments at combat sambo tournaments. You'd have never made it that far because the pressure is infinitely higher than it is here in North America. But so how could Dana White, how could he say, oh man, it's 90% mental? You know that she said she has sinusitis because he's seen it 1,000 times. He's seen it 1,000 times. Every month, oh, so-and-so's sick the week of. It's the same fucking thing. It's the same thing. They have meltdowns. They fold under the pressure. Sometimes I can't make the weight, and sometimes I have sinusitis, and sometimes I've become really weak, and so, it happens. Ian McCall had 2 or 3 opponents do it, and he did it himself once. And I love Ian. But if I sat down and he and I were to chat together, I'd be like, I don't know, yeah, maybe it was. And maybe he wouldn't. Because a lot of the time, these guys don't even know what's happening. But if you're around fighting long enough, you've seen it. And, oh, she was cleared to fight. Why would she even go ask a doctor? Why would they? She knows she cannot do it. She folded it up and she psychologically can't fucking pull it off. She's done. It's over. The visit to the doctor is hoping he'll say it too. So you don't have to cop out. He's fucking copped out. And you don't sit there and go, well, fuck, what a quitter. Psychologically collapsed. If you can't understand this, I have a close friend. He's fucking in this room who was working in a cubicle and the whole world collapsed around him. You have friends that have experienced that too. And I just don't know why people respond so angrily. Maybe you don't want to accept the fact that there comes a moment. So I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself here. Which is more likely? Well, I could fight, but I got this sinus thing. So I'm going to give up $100,000. I'm going to be ridiculed in a laughingstock. I'm going to get in trouble. I'll probably have some repercussions. Hell, they could strip me. But, sinuses, fuck it, I'm not going to fight. Do you really think that's likely? Does anyone really believe that's what happened? $100,000, your future, public scorn and ridicule, and still you won't fight? You can't fucking fight. But why are people reacting so angrily? Is it because they don't understand? So some will be because they don't believe that. They don't want that to be so. And I understand that. If you're like, come on, bro. She could fight. If that's you, I get it. If you just won't accept that Dana White has seen this 1,000 times, and that's why he described it as 90% mental, and that 20 other fight promoters and most coaches, go ask Faraz, go ask, John Crouch, and go ask Dwayne Ludwig, ask them how many times they've seen a fighter melt down the day of. They'll all describe a slightly different variation on exactly the same thing. But if you don't want to believe them, or me, or Dana, or anyone who's been around it for their adult life, Duke Rufus, you don't want to believe Duke, that's fine. But so I understand then where you're like, come on, bro, that's bullshit. If you've just stuck that stake in the ground, no sweat. You chose to ignore what people who have looked at it deeply and been around it say, and that's fine, go do that. But then there's another side, this other side, and I'm not sure what's going on there, where people seem to look at it like somehow it's better to think of her or Stefan Struve. And for some people, the only difference with Stefan Struve is the doc said he couldn't fight. It's because his anxiety was more visible. You know why the doctor said that Amanda Nunes could fight? Do you know why the doctor said she could fight? Because it was the wrong fucking doctor. Should have been a psychiatrist. A fucking experienced psychiatrist. This is real. I have a very good friend, Rick. And Rick says all the time, showing up is half the battle. It is. So she fucking lost. She lost the battle. She couldn't fucking show up. She failed. She didn't give up. It's a real hard one to explain. But for some people in life, they deal with this every single day. And for them, you call it a mental illness. They have an illness. We can go see it. We can go and talk to a doctor who can explain it. It's been studied. They have a mental illness, and nobody's gonna fucking point at them, make fun of them, direct scorn at them. They're mentally ill. You feel for them. You hope they get treatment. I did a thing with Michael Landsberg. It's on this YouTube site. Please check it out. Mike's a really, he hates it when I call him Mike. Michael is a really cool guy, and he does a lot of work to help support mental illness. He does a lot of work to help look for, assistance, raise money, all kinds of stuff. My friend Mauro Ranallo. Actually, I never thought of this till just now. Mauro talks very publicly about mental illness. And let me put it to you this way. I'm going to try to find Mauro. I'm not in touch with him a lot these days, but I have his number, and I'm going to talk to him about it. Maybe there's a way he can try to share this. Mauro fucking had to go and cancel the WWE. He's had to cancel Showtime boxing. He was the commentator the week of, and he had to cancel. Do you think Mauro... And now Mauro understands what the challenges of anxiety and fear and the mental challenges that he possesses as a human being. So Mauro can go and say, he can identify it. He had whatever, I don't know what terminology he would use. And I don't know what the right terminology is because this has never affected me directly. But I'm around people this has affected directly, including Michael Landsberg, who got me reading a lot about this kind of thing. Mauro will tell you, whatever terminology, forgive me if it's the wrong terminology, he had an episode, he had an anxiety attack, he had whatever, but he had to cancel enormous fights. He loves commentating fights. He loves it with every ounce of his being. He loves it. It's all he wants to do. And he had to cancel the biggest shows in the world. Is Mauro a pussy? Is Mauro a chicken shit? Is Mauro unprofessional? These are the names they're calling Amanda. Is Mauro, should Mauro be stripped of his job? They didn't strip him, by the way. I don't know if he's gone back to the WWE. I don't follow it. Has he? Apparently, yes. Good for him. Congratulations, Mauro. And I know you speak about this publicly a lot, so I hope you're okay with me using you as an example. I'm fairly sure that you are. But other Showtime, they understand how talented he is, and this is a challenge he faces. And Amanda Nunes did not have sinusitis. There's a snowball effect that happens. Somebody else said to me on this one, they said, I've seen this happen at smokers. Smokers are when Mark and I go in and they find an equally skilled opponent for each of us of same size, and we and 8 other coupled opponents spar with full-size 16-ounce gloves and headgear and whatever. People I've seen it at smokers where guys bail. And somehow they'll be like, yeah, but the difference is she's 100 times more experienced. Yeah, and it's 1,000 times more pressure. Normally they don't bail the day of. But what happens is the snowball, the tougher they are, the more they deal with it. It should have been addressed. The realities of her true fears and concerns should have been addressed before they snowballed. Another thing I heard when talking about people like, she had 8 weeks to prepare, bro. Yeah, and they prepared wrong. Her and her team pushed away the realities of her fear and anxiety and never addressed them. She pushed them away, ignored them. No. And you can have the same thing happen in a cubicle. And you're like, no, this is what I should be doing. I should be chasing this job. I mean, I have a cool job. I have a good car, I'm dressed well. I'm working in a bank or a financial institution, or I'm a dentist or whatever. You push it away. This is what I had a friend, a good friend. He's a jiu-jitsu guy now. He also is a singer in a rock band. Not me. I'm also not I wouldn't identify myself as a jiu-jitsu guy or, to be honest, a singer in a rock band, but he is a friend. He had his in the weeks leading up to his marriage. And I used to be a hairdresser and I was cutting his hair. Mid-haircut, half the side of his hair, he fucking melts down And it takes off. And I was talking to him then and all week, and he's like, everyone says this about the wedding, but I don't think it is, man. I'm just having an anxiety attack. Like, I don't know. It's like, he's fucking won't address it. He shouldn't have been fucking getting married. You know what I'm saying? My friend shouldn't have been in that cubicle. And this woman shouldn't have been in that cage. And the way you deal with being in that cage is 8, 10, 12 weeks out, or a year ago, or 2 years ago, you deal with the real fears and anxieties before. Don't push them away, don't ignore them, before they bubble up and you have a fucking meltdown. And you might be saying, I'm black, how do you know? I do a podcast with a sports psychology consultant for the last 2 years. We've studied this. One of my close friends is a professor of psychology at the University of British Columbia. Another David. Another one of my friends who I've studied fighting and the relationship between fighting and psychology very closely, Tracy Trudeau, another PhD in psychology. I have commentated 400 shows. I've been at probably 2,000 shows, and I've witnessed this happen. And I've studied it, and I'm here to fucking tell you that's what happened. Now, after saying all of that, if you choose to go, she's a pussy, she's a chicken shit, she's unprofessional, that's your choice. I'm just trying to give you the real insight. And the reason I'm doing it is because, Mauro is a good friend. Mauro strives to help deal with mental illness. Now, Amanda Nunes would not, under any circumstances, be identified as mentally ill. And she will probably be fine as soon as she addresses these things. But she had an episode. And it should give you insight into the torture that some people deal with who deal with this all the time. And my friend Mauro has talked to me about it in the past, and I've seen the work that he's done on behalf of mental illness. And my friend Michael Landsberg, go back and watch the show that we did with him. It's here on the YouTube channel. He's dedicated his life to dealing with this. She is a regular person who has worked her ass off to become the champion of the world. And we look at her and we say, she's the champion of the world. She should be able to fucking deal with this. She didn't. So this could happen to anyone. And it could happen to you. And when you go and you watch somebody like this and you see, man, she's just like you. And that's what we're supposed to take away from this. We're not supposed to be assholes about it. We're supposed to take away from this that we're all pretty fragile, and that even the champion of the world can fold under stress and pressure and anxiety. And you're supposed to develop some empathy. This is supposed to help you when you meet your boyfriend's aunt who deals with these challenges, or you meet your boss's wife who deals with these challenges, or you make a new friend and you're friends for months and suddenly you discover that they deal with these challenges. This is supposed to give you that chance to use a champion of the world or the greatest commentator, play-by-play man in the business in Mauro, or one of the great broadcasters in Michael Landsberg, and go, this can even happen to these people. So just try that on for size. Try that empathy. Look at it a little bit and just see. Maybe this will be valuable for you to see that. And if it isn't, call her a chicken shit and move on with your life. That's fine too. I really don't know how I got so deep into this topic, but I think it was Mauro's got me thinking about it for years. When I saw Michael Landsberg's passion about mental illness, and then my good friend Rick has a family member, and I see him dealing with mental illness all the time. And I see how hard it is. And I saw this Amanda Nunes moment as a chance where we could kind of take a second and look at a hero, look at a great person, look at a winner and a champion, and see, well, if that could happen to them, no, of course that could happen to my neighbor or my sister or my friend, right? Let's just give it a go, all right? Sorry to leave it on such a weird vibe, but hey, man, this is our podcast. We can do whatever we want, right? So I'm heading home, and I'm going to study up and get some cool ideas together, and I'm super pumped to go on TSN tomorrow and all week long and talk about the biggest, craziest fight ever. But later on this week, we'll gather up some of the best questions we can muster for Ask Robin Black, and we will be back. I love you guys, and it's a real pleasure to get to hang with you. Black out.